Uh, I mean, it works. It works. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's where it seems to be. Because
You're fine, unless someone's like all the way over there.
yeah, I sometimes do venture a little bit, but usually that's fine for a minute. But yeah, hmm, cool. How you guys doing?
Uh,
Yes. Just from the library. The
this, yeah, it's from the library, and then Belle took it out, and then I am borrowing it from Belle,
Can I borrow
borrowing it
it?
from the library.
Can I borrow it for this year?
For
It's like it's extremely related to this year. It's like I just want to maybe see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big light here. Um,
Good idea. I won't have.
yeah.
Cool.
How far is it?
I started from her today, so
Okay.
it's like chapter 3.
Okay, fine. You'll
Get
yeah,
that
yeah.
far.
I'm supposed to be first line, so it should I think you'll recognize
I'll
it.
recognize. I'll be, oh,
Yeah.
I know where that's
So funny
from.
that that's come up today
That's crazy.
of all times.
It's very funny.
Yeah, just give one more minute. Anyone want to do any rounding up in case anyone's there? I think there isn't anyone else out there, but in just in case, just starting.
Oh,
How are you?
good. How are you?
Good, good.
How's Rachel?
Yeah, doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Is it yours?
particular news. Yeah, they're cool.
Do you guys need Hesed yet?
In theory, we need asset. What we are our issue is that we're bad at being helped. Meaning, like we don't we're like a bit all over the place. We're like we'll need it, but then we'll only know like last
Okay.
minute and things like that. Thank you. Are you with another family or are you?
I'm not.
And no.
Here.
Okay.
But I'm still here. I have
Yeah,
2 weeks of being here, so maybe I could reach out to her and see like
Yeah. No,
hang around. That's what's like.
Say 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's all good stuff. I know. I
Okay.
know. 2 more weeks of me being here and then back to New York.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right.
I know. Let's
That's
soak it
okay.
in.
It's catch up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. How's things going? How's the week been? Like Omer, how's that going?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Any bonfires? Any
They're
lights?
everywhere.
Yeah, they exist. That's for sure. Cool, nice. Okay, so I want to. So okay, so we are in the secrets of growth and resilience. We are talking about life basically in quite a head-on way, and seeing if we can bring in deeper sources from the Torah to guide us as to how we can grow, how we can deal with different challenging life situations. So that is our general aim overall. We're going to talk about something today, which is something which I used to be very against. To the extent that even I'm in university, I wrote an essay about how this thing was such a terrible thing. And then I completely over time have come to have a very, very different view of it and found that this thing is actually really, really important. Yeah, there are just perfect timing is when I get it switched out. So, oh, Thank you very much. Do you mind giving it out?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's find out what is again modestly titled the biggest factor in emotional and spiritual well-being. Let's see. It is based on a quote from someone from a book that Kayla is reading as we speak. So let's see what we're gonna do about that. But so let's just check we're okay here. Tough. So we start our journey in this particular venture with Avram Avinu, which is always a good place to start. And the Maharal has a very good question which he asks, which we should also really be asking ourselves. So if I were to ask you, Avram, what are Avraham's like big in Avram's youth? What are his big events that we know about? What are like the big game-changing things that Avraham did or was a part of in his early years, which appear to kind of set up everything for later? And
Destroy the idols, his father's idols.
yeah, so that's the first thing I'm thinking. That's to destroy his father's idols. That's certainly going completely against the grain of everything that society stands for, to stand up for monotheism, not only against society and even against his own family. So that was something which was huge. Yeah.
He paid attention to the world around him and asked like a lot of questions.
Right, so that's another one. So he was having theological questions, maybe even realizations to some extent from his attention to the world, from his attention to himself, thinking about the world, thinking about himself. So major theological moves which are going on there. Any other big things that you're thinking of?
Fire.
The fire, yeah. So I think these are all of course related in many ways. But he was thrown in the fire by Nimrod and miraculously saved. But because of his going against idolatry and things like that, he was standing up against what that society stood for. He was thrown in the fire and miraculously saved, and essentially was willing to give up his life, for God, for monotheism. And all these three, I think these are the three things I was thinking of as well. What is the one thing that all these three things have in common? Is that none of them are in the Torah. The Torah Shebechtav, the verses in the Torah do not mention a single one of these events. These are the big things that you want to know about Avram Avinu, and it doesn't talk about them. They are the Midrashim talk about it. It's not that there are not good sources. There are good sources for them existing. What the question that we want to deal with is, why don't these make it into the written Torah, the text, which is so foundational? I'll come to you in just a second. I just want to say I get a little miffed with the children's book. Baruch Hashem, they have lots of good children's Torah books, but when they get to Parshat Lech Lecha of Avram coming on the scene in a real way, they have pictures of smashing the idols and stuff like that, but that's not in the parsha. It's in the background. It is interesting. So I want some pictures of the parsha for the kids. But anyway, yeah, Nechama, what were you thinking?
I was just gonna say because before I growing up, I thought I knew the story about Avinu, and then I got to Brooklyn and I realized, wait, there's a whole lot more
Yeah, it's a whole thing
that everybody else knows that kids have been learning about since they were little.
Yeah.
And I never knew the story.
Yeah, this is the first thing we all know.
Yeah,
I know. I learned about as a child. I learned about the smashing the idols. I think I learned much less about some of the other things. So what on earth is going on that these absolutely foundational events and choices in Abraham's life are something that the written Torah chooses not to talk about, that God did not want to put in the actual written Torah itself? Why might that be? So let's look at the first verse on the sheet is Goros Shem from the Maharal. It says as follows. It says, Lekach lo zachar zechut Abraham v'tzikato kodem sheba elav hadibor min Hashem yitbarach lech lecha me'artzecha. The following is the reason why the righteousness, the merit and the righteousness of Abraham is not mentioned before just coming in with his, the prophetic, words which are coming to him of Lech Lecha, go from your land. So that's where his story starts, which he's probably, I think he's 75 years old or something like that. It's later in his life that this is happening. So why don't we mention these really, really important things which come before that? It says, Lomar Ki lo bachar HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'Avraham b'shvil tzidkato. God did not choose Abraham because of his righteousness. Ella habachira shebachar ba'Avraham eino tole b'shum davar. It wasn't because of any particular thing. Rak be'etzem Avraham bachar. God chose Avraham. He chose him because of his essence. He chose him because of who he was. In other words, he didn't choose Abraham because of what he had done, because of what he had achieved. He chose Abraham because of who he was. And this is like a massive thing. So makes you think, right? Like about, Hashem choosing, this is the beginning of our story in many ways with Abraham, and we know that he did all these great things. So we're not saying he didn't do those things, but why didn't that make it into the actual written Torah itself? Because if the Torah talked about there was the smashing the idols and the theology and the fiery furnace, and then it says Lech Lecha, you would have implied a causal relationship between those two things. Because he did great things, therefore God chose him. That would be wrong. That was not why God chose him. God didn't choose him because of what he did. God chose him because of who he was. What's called his etzem, his essence. So, what can we understand? What does it mean what is the essence of a person? So we'll come to that in just a second. Yeah.
I don't really get the difference. Like, surely his essence is in being righteous.
Yeah. So maybe we'll use that. Maybe we need the next source to help with that. Let's use the next source and then let's come to this question because I think it's going to help us to some extent, and then we'll still have work to do to answer your question. But that's what we want to do. So there's a difference between the two. Apparently, there's one thing called his righteousness, and there's another thing called his essence. What is the difference between those two things? So let's talk a bit about the essence and how that may or may not relate to action. So the Nefesh HaChaim is the next source over here, and as we've discussed, the Nefesh HaChaim is going to discuss that we have different parts of our spirituality. We have I don't usually draw it like this, but it's going to be helpful for our purposes. We have a body, so that could be like the goof. And then we also have, is this going to work? Let's try. Okay. So this is basically our spirituality. On the one hand, you have your body, which is like on the outside of you. The level of your soul, the most internal level of yourself is called your nefesh. And then moving in from that, an even deeper part of yourself is called your ruach. And then the deepest part of yourself is called your neshama. If people have heard that there are also other elements of your soul which are higher than those, but sometimes we talk just in terms of those three, called the naran, the nefesh, ruach, neshama, because sometimes those higher elements, chai yechida, are kind of folded into the neshama. So when you're talking about the neshama, sometimes you're just talking about those highest levels of your own spirituality. So this is how we're going to talk about it today, because this is what Nefesh HaChaim does. And just if you're concerned with the terminology and the categorization and stuff, so that's I think what's going on. Why we're talking about the neshama is going to be the highest level of your spirituality, or also the deepest part of yourself, the deepest part of who you are. So with that, he talks about how you can have an impact with your actions on even your spirituality, meaning even on your soul to some extent. That this is something we know just in life, even without getting into soul discussion, but in terms of you do actions and it has an impact on you. It has an impact on the world. It has an impact on you. You do something which is good, and you do something which is good, and it becomes a little bit easier. You become a little bit more inclined to do those things. Certainly, if you get good feedback from it, but even if not, and then you do something which is bad. You do it a few times. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel so bad to you anymore. It just kind of feels like that's the norm, and that's even from kind of like a psychological level, that you see what you do does have an impact on you. Like going into too much, we were talking the other week with some of the students here about smoking, whatever. I don't want to get into it too much, but like the first cigarette, it's like not usually something that someone has like a massive pull to, maybe a social pull or something like that. But then it has an impact on you, and then all of a sudden you actually like cigarettes. The first cigarette, you don't really like it. You have it for whatever reason. Anyway, but that's just an example. Just even before getting into the spiritual terminology, you do see that the acts that you do have an impact on yourself. That's true to some extent in spirituality as well. That when you do things which are wrong action, immoral choices, and things like that, so it can to some extent have cause damage to the nefesh. It can to some extent cause damage to the ruach, but the neshama, as we will see, is different. So we're just reading in the second source over here. Adar, if you you go on? No? There you go. So we're just reading in the second source over there. And he says, folks, Aval, Bechinat HaNeshama. In contrast to the other parts of our spirituality, the highest part, the deepest part, the neshama, is different. Eina nifkemet klal la'olam. The neshama is never ever blemished. Is never damaged. Ki makor shorsha hu me'olam hameshumar mimagazarim. The root of the neshama is something which is from a world which is above that which people can actually affect. Udvukula olam b'shoresh haneshama kiyidua that it's constantly connected to the source of the neshama, and this, by the way, I think we talked about this before, that the neshama it relates to what words does the neshama relate to? Is Hebrew words? Is neshima. So neshima is a breath, and so this is the breath. The neshama is really coming from the breath of God. So this highest part of you, it's like God is breathing life into you. That first part where it's still kind of the neshima, it's still kind of to some extent almost like a part of Hashem. It's separate to Hashem, but it's connected to Hashem. That highest part of your spirituality, so that's the neshama, which is the neshima. So that's always connected up. And since it's always connected up, so shehem re'in delomit parshin la'almin, these are called friends. The neshama and its upper source are considered friends, which never separate from one another. Ve'ein ma'asei adam magin adea klal lekalkel chas v'shalom. And the actions of human beings can never reach that to cause any damage to it whatsoever. So basically what the outcome of it all is that you have a part of you which no one can ever touch. You have a part of you which no one can ever take away. Even though actions that we do can have an impact on ourselves, there is a part of you which is so deep inside you, which is so high, that that's something which is beyond the reach even of your actions. And so we're seeing here a difference between what a person does and who a person really is. What a person does, for sure, of course, we should try and do the right thing in life. That's bechira. That's in many ways the way that God shaped our purpose over here in life is to have choices and make the right choice and not the wrong choice. Of course, that's part of the avoda. That's part of what we are doing here. But we should just know that the choices that we make are not the be-all and end-all of who we are. There's something which is beyond our choices. There's some part of us which is so deep that your choices can't even touch it, and that's who you are. So just to come back to Lo's question, what's the difference between what you do and who you are? So it's true that your neshama and your spirituality is certainly related to your actions, because that's kind of the thing which is essentially is giving you that Yetzer HaTov. That's the thing which is giving you the inclination to do good. And then you also have Yetzer Hara, other kinds of things which are giving you the inclination to do the opposite. And at the end of the day, the choice is, you have a choice. Am I going to follow, in many ways, am I going to follow myself or am I going to follow something else? It's a new framing of, am I going to do good or bad? There's a different way you can talk about it, which is, am I going to follow myself or am I going to follow something else? And of course, you might not feel that at the time because we are on a lifelong journey to become in touch with who we are. If you see, there's so many layers to, how many of us are, if only I could say that I'm really in contact with my nefesh. Like that's already a high level. But nefesh and ruach and neshama, and you go, deeper and deeper relationship, understanding of oneself. You see that what if it's going to be a journey, but if one is able to take that journey and have a deeper understanding of oneself and have a deeper relationship with oneself, then they'd really be able to see that the moral choices in life are really a choice between being being your true self or being something else. So does that kind of answer the question in terms of the difference between the two? They're related, but not 100%.
So if it's untouchable, that means what you're born with, that's it, and that's the highest levels you can potentially reach.
Essentially, yeah. There's a few footnotes on that, but that is generally true. And that is, and just to clarify, I mean, maybe we'll just to add it on, even though I didn't do it this way this time, but we can go for it. It also gives me an excuse to use another color, of course. So these things, which are, it's true, they're like deep inside you, but also they're on a hierarchical level as well, and they're really relating to the different spiritual universes. So you have our world down here, which is called Asiya, the physical world primarily that we see around us. Above that you have Yetzira, and then above that you have Bria. And there's more above that, but if you think what it means to, like your neshama is like what you have and it's what you're given, that means, like, what does it mean to be what you're given? What you're given is something which is so unbelievably spiritual. It's 2 worlds up from anything that we can really even fathom. So basically it's true that there's a certain element of it being fixed, but what is the it that's fixed is the breath of God. It's like the most special thing which we could imagine, and it's hard for us to even understand that exact nuance, how it's separate from God but still connected to God at the same time. So it's really, really up there in the highest of spiritual universes, and that is something which every single one of us has inside us. And moreover, not only do we have it inside us, it's something that no one can ever take away from you. Yeah.
So if neshama is breath, what is ruach? Because ruach is like the wind, right?
So it's quite interesting. Yeah, Chazal talk about that. They give an analogy of a glass blower. Has anyone ever seen glass blowing?
That's what?
In Tzfat? Or glass blowing?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? So this is how you make glass. You'll probably correct me. Wait, you've seen it? Anyone else actually seen it live? Yeah. So basically, is what the way that it roughly works, and just correct me on this, is that there is a person who's going to blow into a tube, and then the breath is going to travel down the tube, and then the vessel is going to be formed. They blow into it, and it's with the heat and everything, and it's going to be the formation of the vessel is on the other side of that, right? So Chazal say that's how it works in terms of you gaining at every single moment your own spirituality, because Hashem, so to speak, is up here at the top, breathing life into you. So the breath itself is the neshama. As we're saying, it's still kind of like it's so to speak, it's like coming out of Hashem, but it's still like in his mouth, so to speak. So it's like separate but connected. That's the breath itself. And then it goes into the glass vessel, which is called the ruach, which is wind, meaning a breath is when it's you. And at a certain point, once the breath becomes separate from the person, it turns into wind. It's also a force, which is kind of like moving in the air, but it's something separate from the person who produced it, or in this case, the thing that produced it. And then the nefesh is the thing which comes eventually to rest inside the body. So this is where the breath, is traveling down here, and it's the ruach, and here vayinafash, which means to come to rest. So that's when your spirituality finally lands inside your body. So that's what they explain is the mechanism of how the kind of what ishtalshul, it's called the development of the spirituality up from being connected to Hashem all the way down to actually being resting inside your body. And that's something which is existing every moment. It's quite interesting. That's not just a historical event. That's not like how it came to be. That's how it is actually every moment. So you have these 3 parts of you: the part of your spirituality which is inside you, part of your spirituality which is kind of a bridge to outside of you, and part of your spirituality which is like above you, which is the neshama. And that's how it kind of that's how we're talking about it in this way. That the neshama is something which is you, but it's such a special part of you that it's something which you can't even affect in a negative way with what you do. What you can do is that you can connect to it and you can express it, and that's really what growth is. That's really what growth is: becoming more and more in touch with who you really are, and more in touch with that neshama that you really are. Yeah, I think Hasira, I'll kind of come back to you.
So practically speaking, when people say like, "Oh, my neshama is reacting this way, it's reacting that way," that is the deepest point. But
Yeah.
the nefesh is compared to that what then?
It's a good question. Yeah, I guess to add in a few more details over here. So you have, I'm going for record number of colors, by the way, but thanks for the questions. So over here, basically, primarily your nefesh is the part of your spirituality which relates to your actions, masa, and then your ruach relates to your speech, dibur, and hergesh, which is your emotions. And then the neshama relates to your machshava, your intellect, your intellectual life. So when people say their neshama is reacting a certain way, you just have to check, is that an exactly on point statement that they're making? Maybe yes, maybe no. You're allowed to talk about the neshama also in a generic way. You can say my soul. That's why I use the English word soul. But what do you want to say in Hebrew if you want to just say it in general? So people probably say neshama. So you are going to find sometimes the word neshama is used in a generic way to encompass everything which is going on inside a person. Technically, if a person is like having challenges in the realm of thoughts, then that would maybe relate more to neshama. If a person is having challenges in the realm of emotion, that would relate to the ruach, and then having challenges in the kind of like practical realm, that might relate to nefesh technically. But you don't need to enforce that.
Ruach is emotion?
Yes. Emotion and speech. So just thinking also what they call, does anyone know what mental health is in modern Hebrew? It's a briut nefesh, which is like quite a nice term actually. Like it's quite even the modern Hebrew thing like related it to spirituality to some extent. And then you just need to check, in every case, is it really like a nefesh issue, or is it often maybe more like a ruach issue? A lot of mental health stuff is more kind of emotion related, or it could be sometimes people have psychosis, so they're more out of touch with reality, their thoughts or their intellect's like off. And so whatever, again, we're not the police of exactly how to, how people are going to use these words in a colloquial way or how they're employed in modern Hebrew, but it's just it's like an interesting thing to think of in your mind. It's like, which parts of them are they actually talking about right now when they're saying that their internal world is having a struggle or something? Yes, Anna.
The neshama is the breath that's like always connected to Hashem, and the ruach is like the wind caused by that breath.
Yeah.
Okay, and then nefesh, I've heard nefesh is like the word the shorts for the word for vacation is like the same as nefesh, right? Like meaning renewal.
Yeah, she's saying nefesh. The word, that's what they call, at least in modern Hebrew, vacation. I'm not sure if they used to have vacations, but but
it's renewal. Like
could be. I think that's a drasha. Like I'm not sure if that's a pshat. It's interesting. I'll think about it. I think the simple pshat is that nefesh means rest. Vayina, as we use in Bereshit, vayinafash. Hashem created everything vayinafash, and it comes to rest. So the simple understanding is that's the reason why it means vacation, because a vacation is a rest from work, and that's the reason it means this kind of most grounded part of your spirituality is because it's resting in your body. That could also be true, but I think that maybe like another level of analysis or something. So this is a bit of a bigger picture, of course, that we're gaining of our own spiritual makeup. But what we're gaining from this ultimately is that people think that their value comes from their track records. Have I done in life? Have I done well today? Have I done not well today? Your value comes from that. People think that their value comes, what have they achieved? And we're seeing that that's not true. That's not your value is not. You have a responsibility to do the best you can in life, but that's not where your value comes from. That's not where your worth comes from. Your worth comes from something much, much deeper than that. So moving to the next stage, we are going to. So that was our Avram Avinu stage. We're now moving to which ends up relating to Sfirat Omer. So the Sfira of the week is anyone? Still just hanging in there. So it's Hod. How would you translate that out of interest? Yeah.
Say surrender, say admittance.
Yeah. So all these, So it's a bit of a hard one to translate. I've been enjoying this Omer periods because I Especially like Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. Well, we'll do them here, right? So you've got just from the midot point of view. So you've got Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, and then so that I have like a bit of a grasp of, and then like it all usually just falls apart after that. Like, it's like what are the next things? So the next things going down is Netzach, which was last week, and then Hod, which is us, and then Yesod.
Today.
Yesod Sheva Hod, and then the last week is going to be Malchut. I think we might have talked about this. Did we talk about this? There's like pretty cool stuff from Rav Twersky. Has a whole thing where he relates all the midots of the Omer to things which happened in history, which correspond to those things. And this one, there's a few interesting ones, but Hod's already here, so it's something which we're going to see is going to relate to like Omer and different things. But so there's this thing about like beauty or splendor or different things going on with Hod, but it's something which was a bit difficult for me to grasp what exactly is that. So that's what we're trying to grasp. One of the ways that you can, one of the ways that you can gain an insight into what the midah, what the characteristic is through looking at the corresponding person in Tanakh to that, which usually there's a person with all these things. There's usually a corresponding person in Tanakh who kind of embodied that midah. And then if you look at their life, then you may be able to gain an insight into what exactly that midah is after all. So let's look at the person who embodied that, who was, interestingly enough, Aaron HaKohen. So Aaron is the midah of Hod. It's quite interesting. And when you know Aaron, you know him as, what's his big job? What was his big kind of gig in life? So he's the Kohen Gadol. So the very you saying right. So that we're going to talk about. So what my 3-year-old son knows about is the Kohen Gadol. He's very pleased. He dressed up as the Kohen Gadol for Purim. He was over the moon, absolutely over the moon. But that's certainly what you think is Aaron's main role. But actually, Aaron's main role was probably something that no one ever knew about. So let's look at that. It says as follows. So Shnei Bnei Adam. So what would happen? Shnei Bnei Adam she'asu meriva zeh zeh. What would happen if there were two people who fell out with each other? So alach Aaron v'yashav lo etzel echad mehem. Well, Aaron would go. Think of it. This is like the Gadol Hador. Imagine like I don't know. Try not to do competitions for these things. But let's just imagine for argument's sake, like you've got Rav Shechter or something like that comes and he's like, so two people have fallen out with each other, and like Rav Shechter comes and knocks on your door, right? Like, let's see what's going on over there. So Va'amarlo, and he says to him, Bini, Re'ei, Chaviracha ma omer. My son, look at what come look at what your friend is saying. Mataref libo, he's tearing his heart. V'korea begadav, he's tearing his clothes. Omer oili, he says oi, heich esainai ve'ere et chavirai boshti yemenu she'ani hu shesarachti elav. How am I going to look at this person in the face? I'm so embarrassed at what I did. I was the one who was in the wrong. I'm so embarrassed. How am I going to be able to look in the face? So this is what he says. So you've got two people. So he's gone to one of them. Let's go for it. We'll do two names, right? Give us two names. Give us two.
John.
Give me John, okay, and Paul. Right? Should we do that now? Maybe that's not live. Oh, yeah, and Yochanan or something like that. But so I'm gonna do like something last too much of that. Okay, so basically, so he goes to one. So the two people are falling out. He goes to one of them, and he says about the other one. He says your friend is like totally gutted and about this situation. Obviously, he's not even talked to the other person yet. He's totally gutted about the situation. He's tearing himself up. Like he clearly wants to make up to you. He knows he was in the wrong. He doesn't know how he's going to manage to do it. Then, as you can possibly guess what's going to happen next, he says, then Hu Yoshev Eitzel, then it says, Hu Yoshev Etzlo, sorry, still there, Ad Shemasir Kina Milibo, and he sits with him until he takes the kina, the let's say hatred for these purposes out of his heart. So he sits with him, and that's also like an interesting thing. He gave him time, sits with him until he was feeling in a bit of a different frame of mind. Then V'holech Aaron v'Yoshev lo etzel ha'acher. Then he goes to the other one. again, all this is in private. This way, no one knows what's happening here. It wouldn't work if it was public, right? So it means that all this is happening behind closed doors. No one actually knows it's happening. ואמר לו בני ראה חברך מהו אומר מטרפת ליבו וקורא בגדיו ואומר אוי לי הפסע את עיניי ואראה את חבריי בושתי ממנו שאני הוא שסרחתי אליו. Exactly the same thing to the second person. It says, your friend is so gutted. He says he was in the wrong. He's so upset, and he's going to be embarrassed to say. And then, so hu yeshivet so ad shemesir kinam libo, and the same thing, he sits with him until he sort of calmed down from the situation. And then nivkashu zebazeh, when they finally meet, kfafon shako ze leze. They basically hug and they kiss each other. Lekach ne'emar v'yivku et Aaron shloshim yom kol Beit Yisrael. And this is why it says this. All this is not again also in the written Torah, but there's an allusion to it in the written Torah because it says that when Aaron died, all of Yisrael cried for him, Kol Beit Yisrael, all of the house of Israel. If I recall correctly, it says there's a 30-day mourning period for Moshe, but it doesn't say Kol Beit Yisrael, so all the house of Israel. And see what was going on is he was the one who was helping the relationships. He was the one who was helping people, and no one knew this about the other, because again, it wouldn't have really worked. So no one really knew this, but all they knew is that my relationships are like I owe to Aaron. I think he's also relating to Shalom Bayit here as well, by the sense of it. He talks about Kol Beit Yisrael, so even husband-wife relationships. So this is like kind of an interesting trick, by the way. Has anyone ever done something like this? Have you done it?
Like ish.
I actually like you read it in a story and you're like, okay, nice story. No, it would actually work. I've actually done this. Actually, basically, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it's like can't believe this is actually working. It's like it actually worked. And in a mini way, I did a then sometimes you don't do the whole thing. You do something like that, but it's amazing. But so what are we seeing from the story? What can we glean about Aaron and his character from the story? Is that this is what we're calling Hod going together with the hidden beauty. Is in what he was doing the most amazing things, and no one ever knew. And he was, and it was something which was inside. It was only between him and Hashem, and each person happened to maybe know that their story along the way, but they didn't really know what he was doing. They knew he was giving them time. That much he knew. That much they knew. But that was the extent of it. But he was basically saving the relationships of the whole Jewish people, and no one ever knew. And so this is why I want to translate Hod as the hidden beauty. This is like the thing which is inside you, which is the most special thing, and no one will ever necessarily know about it. And that relates to Lag BaOmer in the Rashbi sense, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and the Kabbalah. So Rav Twersky says that is quite interesting. He said every element of Torah has a festival. So you've got the Torah Shebechtav, obviously the written Torah. The festival is Shavuot. Torah Shebe'al Peh also has a festival. I can't recall whether he said it was Hanukkah or Purim. There's reasons that I have to believe is one or the other. I just can't remember exactly what he said. Hanukkah is basically in many ways that was the generation of the Torah Shebe'al Peh kind of comes out of Hanukkah in many ways, but there's the thing Chazal say about the acceptance of the Torah Shebe'al Peh, which came at Purim time. So I'm not sure I can't remember which one he said. He said, and the festival for the Torah Kabbalah, the Kabbalah is Lag BaOmer. Is the Hag for Kabbalah. It's quite interesting because he's not, he doesn't usually say things like this. But that's what he said. It's very interesting. But it relates because Lag BaOmer is Hod Shebahod, which is the hottest day of them all, and and then But what's the point of that? Is that's what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah is the hidden beauty. Kabbalah is the thing which is the most special thing, and we're not meant to talk about it so much. It's not meant to be spread out too widely. It's meant to be something which is a very, very, very personal thing, taught in a very discretionary way, between teacher and students in a very personal way. It's not meant to be something which is spread around the world. Just in case anyone is concerned about this, Chassidut is a little different. The Baal Shem Tov obviously did want Chassidut to be spread around the world, but that was already not kind of like Kabbalah in its raw. Firstly, that was controversial, but even according to the Hasidim, so it's not Kabbalah in its raw form. It's the ideas of Kabbalah made accessible in a way which could be for everyone. So there was a certain operation done which was made to make this thing, which is something which is appropriate for and accessible for everyone. But Kabbalah itself is the most unbelievable thing, in the Pardes, in the system, it's the highest level, Pshat, Remez, Drash, Sod is the highest thing, and it's so quiet. It's hidden, it's completely hidden, and that's basically Kabbalah. So that I'm putting together with Hod, and the way that I want to put this together here is, how would you translate that into a psychological terminology? I think you would translate that as self-esteem. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at over here, is that what is and with the correct definitions and versions of self-esteem, because a lot of people, they think their self-worth is meant to come from what they've achieved in life, is meant to come from the recognition that they have by others. But we see that your self-worth is not meant to come from that. Your self-worth is meant to come from something hidden that no one will ever really know about. And you yourself will spend a lifetime trying to become more and more in touch with. It comes from your essence. And in that sense, it's a really pretty amazing version of self-esteem, because on the one hand, every single one of us has every reason to believe in ourselves and to have that kind of self-confidence, self-worth. It's that part of you that no one can ever take away. I don't care about your track record. I don't care about how many times you fallen. Your basis of self-worth is 100% intact. And so that's on the one hand. And then on the other hand, something which is quite interesting about it is it's also equal. So one of the things this was the thing, self-esteem was the thing I was like fire against, because I thought might sound funny to you now, but I thought it was I thought it was like a American scam to be like selfish. To just think about yourself all the time and not think about other people. But it's really not like that. Firstly, it could be, depending on your definitions of self-esteem, maybe it's a little bit like that. But according to proper definitions of self-esteem, it's not like that at all. It's actually in many ways exactly the opposite. Because whilst it's true that it's something which is facing inward in many ways, it's something which is obligating you to value what's inside yourself and to not just completely ignore yourself. You have to think about what's inside yourself and value that.
What's that mean?
What does it mean to? So I think there's different levels of it. I think that level number one, which is not really a given at all, is to know. It's to know that you have this inside yourself. You have something which is unbelievably special inside yourself, which no one can ever take away from you, and to know that that's the basis of where your self-worth should come from. This is just like the knowledge element. I think that's level one, and I think that the levels after that are really levels of internalizing that. So if you can think about what it means, so already all of us here today, if you didn't know that piece of information before, we now know that piece of information. But now in many ways the work really starts about how much can I actually integrate that and internalize that, so I'm living with that reality. I'll just give you a couple of examples. What does it look like to not live with that reality, right? Which relates to the thing. It's not really about selfishness at all. You find actually you're able to treat other people a lot better if you have like a decent sense of self-worth. And if not, you often find you end up hurting people. So just give you two examples that come to mind. But one example is, let's say from my own experiences, my natural inclination is I want to please people. I want to be a people pleaser. It's a problem. That's a problem, because basically part of where that comes from is because I think, or at least I feel, even though I know it's not really like that, but I feel that my value comes from my ability to make other people happy. But that's not true. So for me to say no, I hate saying no. It's so hard. hate saying no to things. It's different things. But you have to say no to a lot of things. You have different priorities, you have different responsibilities. You can't do everything. And you do have to say no. And it's brutal. And one of the reasons that it's brutal is because the person's going to be unhappy with me if I say no. So you have to know that that's not, but your worth doesn't come from what the other person thinks of what you do. It doesn't even to some extent come from what you do. It comes from who you are. And that's something that, so to be in that moment and be like, it's okay, I'm okay. Like, this doesn't affect who I am. This is something which I need to do. I'm a decent person. I'm doing the right thing here. I know they're going to be upset at me. I'm still intact, as a human being. To be able to have that consciousness in the moment, that's already a next level. That's something that we're going to have to work on to contemplate this and see what we can do to integrate. Does that kind of answer the question? I mean, like, what does it mean to like be in touch with that?
Yeah. We touched on like so many things, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the truth is, it's really a beginning, because what we're talking about here is the content. What I want to talk about in another here is like very tangibly how to do all this stuff, like how to integrate something into yourself. But the truth is also, because of the HUD thing, I wanted to talk about this now, because I never thought like now I can have an understanding of HUD. HUD is self-esteem. Meaning it's all those things. It's all the things. So what are some of the things that you mentioned? It's also obviously the inner beauty. It's the part of you which no one can see, but also what's the things like the acknowledgement. It's very hard to acknowledge other people for things that they've done for you if you feel like trash, because you want to have done it yourself. You want to have done it yourself. But if you feel okay, you're secure, so you can acknowledge that someone did something for you. That's okay. Doesn't take anything away from my worth. I'll just give you the other example I was thinking of before relates to this. So there's two guys. This is this just happened last week. So there's two guys who have quite evidently self-esteem challenges, and they make a certain contribution to how to put it. Basically, I would say the thing, there's no way you'll find out. There's a shiur, right, which goes on, and they both bring stuff like food and drinks and stuff to the shiur, and that like makes them feel good, which is and there's something to be said about that, and you have to also like, it's a bit like the plaster, like you should also allow yourself to feel good, even through things that you do. It's just not the bottom line, is what I'm trying to put across. Anyway. Last week, they brought the same thing, meaning they brought the same kind of drink, and there was a gigantic argument, and one of them left. He said, "I'm never coming back. Never come back to shit." So what's happening, again, not to trivialize, obviously these are real feelings which are going on in the moment, but what's happening there is that someone is getting their worth from things that they do. And when the thing that they do was basically made obsolete, they had nothing. They had to run away. They just had nothing. So you see that it's actually doing a favor to others to work on your own kind of like self-esteem, to work on feeling okay about yourself, because then you can, so I don't know if it's like always true in all cases, the thing about that you have to love yourself before you love others, but it's definitely true in a very practical sense. Like, as in, like, if you are struggling, then you'll probably be seeking things from others. If you feel okay about yourself, then you feel it's easier to give to others. But if you're looking for approval from people all the time, if you're looking for, you may engage in certain unhealthy behaviors because it makes you feel loved, it makes you feel valued, it makes you feel, oh, like this person feels that I'm good, but that's not really the reason to do things. It's very understandable. So there's a few different ways in which this comes in, but that's kind of I would say with that. I just wanted to read it. So Kayla's not here, but she let me borrow her book because I just wanted to read this quote from the book. So this is what Rav Twersky said. So Rav Twersky is just the most unbelievable person ever. He passed away a few years ago, and he was one of the most amazing things about him. He was a rabbi and a great chacham, and also a doctor. He was a psychiatrist. So he genuinely had knowledge of all the things that you need to know for all this stuff. And it's also just amazing to see, because if you've seen, is there a picture? Right, that's what he looked like. Super Hasidic, super rabbinic. He was like a head of psychiatry department in a hospital. It was like doing like a normal
Wow.
and a high level job. by the way, as a quick aside, one of the things that low self-esteem can lead to is overachieving. I know that might sound funny, but I know also I've got people who I deal with who their whole sense of worth comes from getting distinctions in every single thing that they do, and if they don't, they're completely crippled. It's amazing. It looks amazing from the outside. It's like, wow, this person's thriving. They're like the most amazing top of all their classes. But what's underneath is like they're begging for something to hang on to. You know, you have to be okay to fail because it's gonna happen. You have to be okay. Anyways, this is what Rav Twersky says. It says, during my many years of psychiatric practice, I've been impressed by the observation that if we exclude those emotional disorders that are primarily of biochemical origin, a substantial majority of emotional or behavioral problems are due to one common underlying factor, an unjustified and unwarranted feeling of low self-esteem. Mad. These are the majority of things that he's dealing with. Basically come down to that. So there are many people who believe themselves to be much less capable, much less competent than they are in reality, and it's this mistaken self-concept that produces a myriad of problems. Amazing. And he didn't even get to the Torah stuff yet. That's just from his psychiatric practice. Like pretty mad stuff. But that was where the title of the shiur comes from. And honestly, I read the line and I've thought about it a lot for many years, and I do agree. Like it's been in my experience, it's definitely like myself and also the people I speak to. It seems to be a lot of the time the biggest factor. So it comes up in many different ways. And if there's something that we can work on to have that self-worth, and especially when it comes from that healthy place of that part of you, which is always going to be there with you, then that can be something which is very important. So before seeing the last source, anyone have any comments or questions that they want to bring at this stage? So let's, you want to say?
How did this last source tie into?
So we haven't got there yet. So we'll do that now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're only ahead of the game. We're ahead of your time, as they say. So let's catch up to as we speak right now. So it's true that so we know like Omer was relating to the Torah Tasod, Rishon Rifai, all these things, but the Gemara doesn't talk about any of that, right? So what does the Gemara talk about? The Omer, the negative, the mourning period is the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva dying, and the celebration is
revealing.
So that's true, although the Gemara doesn't talk about that. Again, there's no good sources. The Gemara doesn't deal with it like that. So he stopped dying. So let's just see that. So Amru, Shnemasar Elef Zugim Talmidim Hayu Lo the Rabbi Akiva Megabat Ad Antipras. So he had 12,000 pairs of students. So 24,000 people were his disciples, his students. B'chulan Meitu b'Perek Echad. They all died in one time period, which is between. Which is in this general time period, and it says, seemingly for this first kind of big chunk of the Omer until you get to day 33, and because they didn't treat each other with kavod, with decent dignity and respect, which is aside, we're still working on that one. We didn't master that yet. So we still need to work on that. So what's the story? So it's Vahaya ha'olam shamim, and the world was desolate. You think this was it? This was Torah in that time, and it was all gone. So the thing is, so the celebration. So the Talmud and Rabbi Akiva stopped dying, but do you know the reason they stopped dying? Because they were dead. There was nothing. There was nothing left. So what's the celebration?
Only 5.
Well, but not even. Yeah, you'll see. So we'll get to that. Yeah. Yeah. So all 24,000, all 12,000 pairs died. It says they all died. So if they stopped dying, it means because there's no one left to die. So what's the celebration on a? The real celebration is, from what I understand, is because of the next part of the Gemara. It says follows. This was the case. Ad Sheba Rabbi Akiva Eitzel Rabbatev Shebedro. He went to the south. V'shana lehem and he taught them. He taught 5 new Talmidim. He taught Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, which is Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Shmuel, v'heim hemidu Torah ota sha'a. They saved Torah. These 5 new Talmidim they saved Torah. It says at that time, and it happens to be, just a second, happens to be that these are the basis of basically everything we have from the Torah going forward. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai will say Zohar. Rabbi Meir is the Mishnah. Mishnah is written according to Rabbi Meir. Stam Mishnah is according to Rabbi Meir, and the other ones all have one of them. I can't remember which one is the Brightots, which is all the main thing. Basically, all the Torah that we have today comes from the next 5. The 5 who saved Torah in that generation, basically saved all of us for the rest of time, was the thing that he not the first period, not the glorious period, that final push that he made. And Nechama, what do you think?
Wow. I'm not really understanding like why it's saying the world was left desolate of Torah when like the people who's going to teach, they were already rabbis.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know. I assume they were. I don't know whether it's giving them this name because that's what they became, but that's what we know them as, or because they already were. It definitely could be they already were. So I don't know the answer to that question. I think about that. It could be like the lifeblood, of the Torah in the generation was that, even if there were individuals doing different things. But I don't really know the answer. It's a good question. But so think about it like this, right? Getting ahead of Rabbi Akiva, your whole life's work is destroyed. Every single thing. Never mind the bereavement issue, but just everything that you've worked on for decades is gone. No, nothing. No legacy, nothing. And what he was able to do a miracle at that time. That miracle was to not give up. And that miracle was to be able to take that next step, even the most brutal thing. I mean, just to imagine such a thing like that, to be able to take that next step and say, it's okay, we can go again. And he did indeed find the strength to do that. And with those 5 Talmidim is that which is running through our veins, giving us life to this day. That's what we owe it to, that move of Rabbi Akiva. And I think that with this, then you see even the pshat reason. This is like the simple, the deeper reason is the Zohar and the revelation of the Torah Tasod and things, but the simple reason that Gemara talks about for the festival of Lag BaOmer is really this, is Rabbi Akiva's ability to not give up. And it must have been that Rabbi Akiva, what quality must he have had in order to do that? He must have had this hod thing, which was to know that you're not defined by your actions. You're defined by something more. There's always something which will always be part of you, which no one will ever be able to take away, because everything was taken away from him. Everything was taken away. But there's still something left, which was him. And the Master was able with that to do the miracle, to have the strength to be able to carry on at that time and take that next step. And that would be our HODs, that ability to know that that's inside yourself and to do the impossible, which is to be able to carry on in an impossible situation. So this is what we wanted to talk about. This is the kind of the thing which is where we're talking about growth and resilience. Like self-esteem is really the center point in many ways of that. I do think we thought about it in the context of Amram Avinu, that was why Hashem chose him in the first place. We understood a bit about what does that mean. What does it mean? Your essence is this part of you that no one can ever take away, and see how that lives out in Aaron, who is the embodiment of that, in Rabbi Shimon in the Kabbalah, but also in Rabbi Akiva himself. That ability to carry on. As soon as we named our second son, who was born kind of in the war, which war period? That's what you ask now, but basically like not like a few months after October 7th, and it's like hard to know how you can carry on. So we named our son Akiva, because, and this was what I had in mind at that time, the ability to not give up under the most impossible situations. He's definitely stayed strong to that so far. He's very strong, independent-minded 2-year-old. But this is the thing. So just with that, let me just give a bracha that we can internalize this idea that we have the most special thing inside us that no one can ever take away, and please may it help us in our lives.
Amen.
Shema.
Thank you.
So yeah, so it's amazing this I was just reading this book at the desk at the time.
That book.
Yeah.